The Wandering Faith. There's two ways to look at this thing, and Trevor Henderson himself has said as much. Either it's a single massive hand descending from the clouds to pluck people off the ground, or it's a four-legged creature with an absurdly long neck that just happens to disappear into the sky. Trevor leans toward the second interpretation, and honestly, looking at the image, so does everyone else. The Wandering Faith is quadrupedal, roughly 1.5 kilometers tall from what we can measure below the cloud line, and covered head to toe in thick, wrinkly, dark grey skin that looks like a rhino that never figured out how to do a skincare routine. Its four legs bend at weird angles, are visibly skeletal even through all that skin, and end in either hooves, elephant feet, or nothing at all. Nobody's sure, and nobody's getting close enough to check. Though this thing reminds people a lot about that dinosaur movie with Jeff Goldblum. The neck is almost as thick as the torso and just keeps going, up through the clouds, into the stratosphere, into whatever's on the other side of that. And hanging from the underside of the head, which is really just more neck, are dozens of thin tendrils, and this is where things get personal. Because the Wandering Faith is a collection giant, and its whole job is grabbing people off the ground and sending them upstairs to heaven, assuming you're worthy. Trevor has also hinted the Wandering Faith might be able to reproduce based on a second image showing a smaller, thinner version of it lurking over a city, which is another problem of its own. Sky Screamer. Also known as the 20th Century Boy, which sounds less like a horror creature and more like a lost T-Rex track. But we're going with Sky Screamer here because it's less confusing. This one is genuinely difficult to describe because Trevor didn't really give it a body. It's basically just a floating head hovering over a plaza between buildings, with tentacles hanging where a torso should be, and no visible body of any kind. The face is missing basically everything. Two large circular holes for eyes, a gaping triangular mouth that looks vaguely disappointed, and both of them glow a searing white, which strongly implies the light isn't coming from the eyes and mouth themselves. It's coming from inside, and those are just holes. Its tentacles fan out in every direction, and the ones on the right are noticeably longer, stiffer, and pointier than the rest, like it has one dominant hand for grabbing things. Size-wise, best guesses put it somewhere between 22 meters and 300 meters tall. The Sky Screamer belongs to the hostile branch of the giants, the ones with the long tentacles and the bigger frames whose whole deal is grabbing people and dragging them to paradise, which, given the context, is probably not the kind of paradise you're thinking of. Behemoth. This is the biggest of the giants, allegedly a few hundred kilometers tall and equally long, which means its head alone is roughly the height of a full mountain. We know this because in the image, that's exactly what it's doing, just casually bursting up through one. The creature is reptilian, structured like an iguana that took a bunch of steroids, with pale white scales that appear to be actively flaking off its face like it's shedding. Its eyes are pitch black, sit in sockets that don't seem to have any actual skin holding them in, and give off zero information about what it can actually see. The mouth is lined with jagged teeth that get smaller toward the back, alligator style, and are large enough to swallow a city-sized burger with thousands of people in it. Its estimated bite force is 210 quadrillion pounds per square inch, which is a made-up sounding number for a made-up creature. But the point is that no material on Earth would survive being chewed by it. Even conventional weapons are basically useless. A bomb going off on its body would register as a small needle wound. Behemoth is a destruction giant, which means it exists to wreck the place rather than ascend anyone to heaven. Its roar alone would deafen people at range and kill anyone closer through internal damage. And when it's not doing that, it lives underground, digging tunnels through the crust by eating and clawing through Earth itself, probably sleeping between rampages, which is honestly the only reason we don't see it more often. A monster this size only really needs to wake up every few centuries to ruin a country. Breaking news. Breaking News is a gigantic humanoid giant, pitch black in color, with a tall lanky build and skinny arms and legs, and a distorted head that's apparently the main thing people remember about it. It's also one of the most popular giants Trevor has ever drawn, sitting alongside Behemoth and the Wandering Faith at the top of the fan favorite list, which is impressive given how little material there is to work with from this pile. The most notable thing in the community is the running debate about whether Breaking News and the giant with red dots are actually the same creature. After all, they share a lot of similarities, but who knows, that's part of the mystique about this creature. Giant with red dots. Some giants have names like Behemoth or Sky Screamer that make them sound like ancient forces of destruction. This one is called the giant with red dots because that's what it has, red dots. It's a humanoid destruction giant, just a tad bit taller than the Burj Khalifa and around 490,000 tons, entirely pitch black, with two absurdly long and skinny arms that reach all the way down to the ground, plus weirdly muscular legs that look like lean beef patties. You can't actually see its head in the image because it's tilted upward toward the sky. And on the front of its torso are 11 small glowing red dots, some brighter than others, arranged like someone stuck LED bulbs on a shadow. Nobody knows what the dots are for, but the theories aren't reassuring. They might be for confusion and disorientation, blinding people at close range, or they might be some kind of energy weapon, though nothing confirms that. But the scarier theory is that the dots are used to summon more giants, which is just more bad news bears, and when it's not doing that, it's crushing unworthy humans with its size, possibly using those long arms to snatch worthy ones up for ascension too, so it can technically fill both giant roles at once. Precursor of the First War. The first war between humanity and the giants had to start somewhere, and this is the guy who kicked it off. It's a gigantic bluish-grey humanoid, larger than a skyscraper, extremely muscular, with two glowing white dots for eyes and a huge mouth that hides a long, slender, proboscis-shaped tongue. That tongue is used to devour humans and probably to take military aircraft out of the sky, which is a very specific set of use cases for one appendage. Its body also changes color depending on which attack it's using, which is a weirdly video game mechanic to put on a Trevor Henderson creature, but here we are. One of the more interesting bits of context comes from someone's description about chasing this thing in a vehicle and getting outpaced. They got a few photos, some video, and then the creature just crossed the county line and left their jurisdiction, which is a very bureaucratic way to explain why nobody stopped a skyscraper-sized war starter. It just walked into somebody else's problem. The follow-up detail from that same quote is that displaced animals started arriving in the witness's town over the next month, meaning wherever the Precursor went, wildlife panicked hard enough to migrate. That's the actual scale of this thing. And it's incredibly fast on top of that, capable of covering multiple counties in a short span, which is why anyone assigned to track it eventually just gives up. The Precursor is also strong enough to rival a developed military, which is a fun little detail if you enjoy hopelessness. Tree head. Imagine a person the size of a skyscraper, except instead of one head, it has dozens, all human-looking, with long women's hair and tiny pinprick eyes pointing in different directions. That's tree head. The name comes from the fact that its head genuinely does look like a tree, if trees were made of faces. Trevor never officially named it, actually. When asked, he said, "I'm not sure, I only saw it in passing," playing along as the fictional witness who supposedly photographed the thing. So the name Treehead is a fan placeholder that stuck, and it works, because there's no better description for what you're looking at. The body itself is roughly humanoid, thick forward-bending legs, arms connected via pointy shoulder blades, and hands that are mostly just bones. Each hand has 3 clawed fingers, plus a thumb that's usually tucked behind them, and the whole appendage looks less like a hand and more like something you'd find at the end of a dinosaur skeleton. Skin is thin enough that its ribs are visible as lumps in its torso, which is a nice touch. The interesting part is how it moves. In the reference image, it's bending at the knees and back, posed like a dog or bear that just stood up briefly to check something out. The theory is that it usually walks on all fours, because balancing all those heads on 2 legs would be a nightmare. Witnesses describe it as surprisingly quiet for its size, capable of moving along a distant horizon without you noticing until it turns to look at you. At which point you get to enjoy the sensation of many small glowing eyes reflecting the sunset back at you from a silhouette shaped like a tree of faces. The witness in the original account reports the thing spotted them, then loped away on all fours like a spooked animal, which is the horror version of a good outcome. Remain indoors. Remain indoors until you hear the tone. Keep a radio in your vicinity to keep aware of current weather status. That's the radio broadcast that plays whenever this thing shows up, and it's where the name comes from. The recommended response to remain indoors is, unsurprisingly, to remain indoors. The creature itself is a 9-kilometer tall tripodal entity, weighing roughly 910,000 tons, roaming large rural areas whenever the weather turns bad. It has 3 extremely thin legs, 2 in front, 1 in the back like a tail, attached to a torso that's basically just a featureless lump of grey flesh. Its neck, or head, or whatever you want to call that appendage, extends disturbingly far into the sky and bends at a joint like an elbow, which is not how necks are supposed to work. Dangling from the underside are dozens of small, thin tentacles used to pluck humans off the ground for ascension. It's a collection giant, meaning its job is grabbing worthy people and sending them upstairs, similar to the Wandering Faith. The two look enough alike that they're theorized to be related. The catch is that remain indoors also causes bad weather. Actual storms roll in with it, which is why the radio broadcasts warn people to shelter in place. Presumably because if you're outside during a storm and a giant is roaming through it, the odds of being scooped up go significantly up. Humans have been dealing with this thing long enough to have built infrastructure around the problem. dedicated fields for it to wander through, established radio warning systems, and the general cultural understanding that when the weather gets weird, you go inside. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe. Also, let me know what you want to see in the next video. I read all of the comments. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.